everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Cynical Challenge podcast. My name is Greyson and JP, and joining you from Edmonton, Alberta. You'll see things a little bit different this week. Unfortunately, Jeff Salisbury is in charge of babysitting duties right now. Emma being a little fussy, so you just have myself and Jeff Paulus on the line from St. Albert. JP, how you doing?
Fantastic. Survived the last 11 days or so of assessments. Yeah, I still love my hair, so there we go.
Yeah, so obviously it's been a couple weeks for us. JP had assessments with Scottish. I've been busy doing a couple things, and Sally too, obviously with M and work as well. So this is the first time we've actually had a chance to kind of get together, and it's nice to talk football. So why don't we get into it, JP? Obviously, the big thing in Canadian football right now is the Canadian women played two friendlies in the last 7 days. 3-0 victory over Wales this past Friday. I don't know how much you can take away from a match against Wales. I guess if you want to compare it, they're similarly ranked in FIFA rankings to Argentina, who we saw at the She Believes Cup, and that was only a 1-0 win. So obviously 3-0 over a Welsh side is a good little boost of confidence, isn't it, JP?
Yeah, it certainly is. I think these are the matches that just the game time with new players coming in and with the new manager and maybe a new system trying to be played. Matches against anybody are important matches. The opposition or who the opposition is become less vital. It's just that chance to get 90 minutes against somebody that has a different tactic to beat you. So it's just provides you that much more than a training match, an inter squad. I got to watch a bit of that game, certainly, and yeah, there's some positives with this group of players, and there's definitely some positives. Some of the new girls being brought in right now.
Yeah, one of the new girls who's been brought in the last couple of times. We saw at the She Believes, Evelyn Vien. She scored in that match, a little redirection on the ball from Becky to make it 2-0. Deanne Rose scored, and then also Jessie Fleming. I don't know if you saw that goal that she scored, the third one. What a strike that was to curl that into the top corner.
Yeah, I could have used that in the Island Games to finish like that. Great finish. I mean, that just shows her quality. To line that up, she put that ball exactly where she wanted it. You could see her shape up to hit that one. And really exciting young player, certainly.
Obviously, the concern from the Wales match was an injury to Christine Sinclair, kept her out of the second match. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anything serious. She should be okay for Tokyo. I'm not sure it's going to affect her NWSL season, which is just starting to ramp up as well. But are you concerned at all about an injury to Christine?
I mean, I think you always have to have that concern when you're talking about one of the greatest players in Canadian history. And I say players on purpose, not female or male. I think Christine Sinclair has been the important player, certainly the last couple of generations. Probably inspired more young female players to take up the game to try to achieve those goals, reach the highest level. So Christine Sinclair deserves her own statue. In front of Canada Soccer's headquarters, quite honestly. So I think you're always concerned about that. But you look on the other side and where this kind of program is headed now. We know Christine is, we're at the twilight of her career. This was an opportunity against a really good side in England to see what else we have. And I thought that what else we have is quite good. There's a different feel, obviously, when Christine's there. She's the focal point of the attack. When Christine's not there, the attack it becomes more by committee. More players are looking to get forward, I think, and they can play a little differently. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next year, certainly, as this transition happens here. But yeah, I mean, you always miss a legend.
I think I read a couple different people have mentioned this on social media and articles and that kind of thing too. But when Christine's on the pitch, it seems like the players always defer to her. They always look to get her the ball as their first option. Whereas when she's not, it almost feels like things open up a little bit more because she's not there. And I don't know if that's a good thing. It obviously is a good thing the way she finishes to have her on, but to have the players of the mindset that we don't have to go to her all the time, even when she's on, I think is something that needs to switch at some point too here. And how do you get players to kind of think that way, to get away from this is our main option and really the only one when we get in trouble?
This is a tough one. Again, you look at the Jesse Flemings and the the Veens and these younger ones. They've grown up idolizing Christine Sinclair, I'm sure. Well, now you're sharing a pitch with her, but your qualities are right there as well as a player. But this is still someone that's inspired you, and I think this is a really tough thing for young players to get past when you have someone with that importance on the pitch. You're going to look to that player. I mean, Christine's a leader. For me, the more interesting scenario is what happens with new coach. And I mean, Bev Priestman obviously has a relationship with Christine Sinclair, having been with John Herdman. So there's that. But now that Bev will want her way to play. And part of that coming in now is you have a Christine Sinclair, the twilight of her career. You've got all these kind of young players. You might have a different idea on how you want your team to play versus how it's been played the last few years. Where does Christine Sinclair fit into that? How do you manage that? You certainly don't want to be the one to make the decision that Christine Sinclair will not be a starting player on Canada. You're kind of hoping Christine makes that decision as the coach at that point. That'll be the fun. I think that'll be the fun one to watch. The fun kind of bit of controversy maybe that could happen.
I was thinking she could almost maybe slide into something of a super sub role. Maybe come in the 60th, 70th minute if you're tied or need a goal, and because fresh legs, be like, hey, just run your ass off for 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is here, whatever you have in the tank. And, if you're looking for a goal late in the match, Christine's someone you're going to want out there. So I don't know, it may be something to explore.
No, I love that. I actually like that better. I personally prefer that scenario to starting Christine and then looking to replace Christine in the 60th minute. I would go the other way for that reason. If you have a game fresh Christine Sinclair coming out for the last 30 minutes against a back line and a holding midfield player that's having to defend kind of some of the younger players and maybe some of the quicker players, and they've been defending for 60 minutes, and now all of a sudden they face a fresh Christine Sinclair. I mean, that's pretty daunting for them. And I like that scenario, personally.
Yeah. So we'll see how Beth Priestman handles it. The second match was the one that was going to be the real test, as Canada looked really good, I thought, against England in a 2-0 win. First of all, how nice was it to see mistakes made in a match that cost a team goal that wasn't Canada? That was real refreshing to see. First of all, obviously with Evelyn Viens again finding the score sheet with the steal in the 3rd minute, and then Nichelle Prince is a terrible mistake by Karen Bardsley, the English keeper, late in the match to seal it. But if you look at it, aside from the 2 mistakes, Canada looked really solid defensively. They didn't give England a whole lot. Steph Labbe, a couple okay saves, but she wasn't really tested too much.
No, a very good performance in the back. And again, I think this will be the, when you have a back line that's that kind of together already, England's a good side. And to see the back line kind of, again, they limited top chances. They kept top chances, to a minimum in this game. What that now gives is a bit of freedom to your attacking players. So you can try different things here. You're not pulling all 10 players back to necessarily defend. Now you can really set your team up to play the counter attack by keeping some players higher. I think when you're that solid defensively, it's funny you brought up that the keeper error there on the pass back, is, when I watched that, all I could think about was Jake Keegan coming from nowhere behind, here at Clark. So I love it. But I mean, great effort to stay on that, to not give up on it, to challenge a keeper. And horrendous keeper mistakes never happen, but good on us for jumping on it. That was Prince, right? Yeah. So I know I was only able to watch that game in and out. I wasn't able to focus on it with just so much work going on, unfortunately. But again, you're playing a top nation right now in England, and I think this is probably a statement game for Bev to get this result. Against a program that she's left to come here. That game primarily sets them up really well, getting ready for the Olympics here.
Yeah, we had on the One Soccer feed was the BBC commentary. And there's some panic in England a little bit with this team. They have 4 wins, I think, in their last 14 matches. They lost to France 3-1 prior to losing to Canada. So a little bit of concern there for the English. For Canada, is the first win against a top 10 team in 11 matches. So, and the last win was actually against England. So a good confidence boost there too. 2 clean sheets in the 2 matches. Looks really good as well. I wanted to point out someone we really liked in the game against the Americans at the She Believes Cup, Vanessa Gilles. There was one play in particular against England. She turned the ball up almost at halfway. It was a step behind an English player who was racing in basically by herself, and Jill just hauled to get back, got a block on it, and I was so impressed with that. And she looks real good, and it's going to be real tough for Bev when it comes to making decisions for center backs, because we didn't see Kadisha again, but she's basically set in stone when it comes to a position in Tokyo. But yeah, interesting choices for Bev at the back too.
Absolutely. Fantastic. She believes cup. And then again, this game, and that recovery run was vital, because if you saw when the player actually did try to beat Steph LeBay coming out, the angle was there, the ball would have gone past Steph. And, but because of that recovery run, it's come off Giles and it's gone out. I quite like her actually. Kadisha, she's a lock. That's 100%, the level she's playing at and how much she plays, no brainer. But no, listen, Bev, this is an exciting group again. We talked about what would happen in women's football in Canada when this generation kind of, aged out. I think we're seeing that we're going to be okay. This is a different type of player now. I think that these players are probably more comfortable on the ball than the previous kind of generation of footballers, and we're starting to see that in this roster. And I think Bev is every indication is Bev wants to bring that out. She wants them to keep the ball a bit. She wants them to play with it. And it looks like we've got the talent pool there to make that happen.
I know we were a little bit down on the women following She Believes. I think opinions have changed a little bit. And if they play like they did against England, this is certainly a team that could contend for a medal once again in Tokyo. The Americans are always going to be the favorite. The Dutch are obviously very strong as well. England, Australia, although the Aussies gave up 5 goals against Germany and France in their last 2 games. So they're a little bit of trouble. But, maybe aside from the Americans and the Dutch, it's kind of wide open. And performances like that have got to, at least give you a little bit of hope or confidence that, they could go in there and get a 3rd straight medal.
Yeah, no question. Does Desiree have a spot now?
That's interesting too, because how good was Quinn? Or how good have they been for the last, few matches? So, and they kind of played that same role. Lots of choices, and you can only take 18 to the Olympics. It's different than a World Cup, right, where you can take 23. So
I didn't know that actually. You only take 18.
You can only take 18 players.
That's kind of silly, but yeah, Desiree for me is that out and out holding midfield player, the one that protects the back 2 the 2 central defenders, an out and out ball runner. So against opposition that likes to kind of come at you centrally with that kind of more middle build up as opposed to kind of wide play and spreading the field out. There's a fit for Desiree there for sure, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she makes the squad.
Maybe it's it's just a matter of maybe who the opposition is and how they like to attack, and you kind of put people in. So it's nice, I guess, that flexibility for Bev. So it would be nice, I think, too, if they could play another couple of friendlies maybe in June before the Olympics in July, but we'll wait and see. Nothing has been announced as of yet. Speaking of June, that's when things really ramp up for the Canadian men's national team. And there was a whole big, oh my goodness, the world is falling in when Jonathan David got injured in a match for Lille. He scored and then got injured in the same match and left, and it didn't look good. And the initial reports were he's ruptured tendons in his ankle and he's out for several weeks was the wording, but he's back at training. I don't know what happened, but he's back at training and he wants to play against Montpellier this weekend. So is there a big sigh of relief there from Canadian supporters in terms of Jonathan David's health?
Oh, of course. Expectations. It's amazing because expectations here have changed with this men's team. And he's a big part of that, obviously, him and Alphonso Davies, those 2 in particular, but it's a deep roster. I think that we've got the ability right now to manage a few matches without him. If he wasn't available, it wasn't doom and gloom for me. I think that we now have the pieces in place where John has depth in every position to work with. This is not something we would have said 6 years ago, 8 years ago. I think that's the case now. But of course, when Jonathan David walks into a camp, there's obviously a different atmosphere. There's a different feel for even amongst the other players. When you go and play your opposition sees Jonathan David as your starting number 9. there's going to be a different kind of, a different opinion, a different feeling you have as defenders on the opposition team. So fantastic. I mean, incredible. I can't believe it that he's back training right now, but
Yeah, it blows your mind, doesn't it?
it does. Yeah.
A question I wanted to ask you when it comes to Joe is, if you were to rank Canadian players by just how vital they are to our national team at the moment, whereabouts would you place Jonathan David? How high do you have him on a list like that?
That's a tough question, Gray.
Yeah.
It's a tough question just because, again, I think that this national team isn't we're not a team that is one player from being good or bad, quite honestly. So again, I believe that we've got players that can step in and fill a void if Jonathan can't be here. Obviously, we want Jonathan here. Absolute immense talent. Yeah, I mean, if you can have him, you want him. But we can replace every player on the squad right now. Quite honestly, the way that he's got them playing, the different looks that this national team has and that John can bring out. How do I rate? I mean, is he one? Okay, he's one of our top players.
Yeah.
So is he one of our top, 3 players? Of course he is. And some people would argue 1 or 2, depending on who you like better. I guess what part of the country you're from.
Right.
It's either going to be Alfonso or him. But again, we're deep. We're fairly deep. So I don't think there's a player that can't be replaced at this point in time.
No, that's fair. I think it's a lot different than it was, man, even like 5-10 years ago, when if you didn't have an Atiba for a set of matches, well, you're just like, wow, we are in so much trouble because there's nobody who can play that. Or D-Ro, a Dwayne De Rosario type of thing. Even if you go back as far as like Thomas Rosinski and players like that. Whereas now, if you don't have that, maybe your first choice, second choice is not that bad. The drop off is minimal. Where
Exactly.
before the gap was so big. So
yeah. So sorry, I didn't really answer your question, but
yeah, no, that's it was
it's
a tough one. Yeah. But anyways,
we'd rather not have to replace it. I mean, I can say that.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say for sure. So yeah, things get real busy in June for the men. June 5th is the match against Aruba, and then June 8th is the match against Suriname. That's the home match. So I guess it would be in Florida. It would be my guess, probably in Orlando again. Aruba was playing in Florida as well, and I would guess that would be the same. And then the either Haiti or Nicaragua series would be June 12th and June 15th, starting with the away leg. Now, if that is in Haiti, they are allowed to play in Port-au-Prince. So that would be a tough one on the road. And then the home would probably be once again in Orlando. Nicaragua, they played their home match in the Dominican Republic the last time. Okay. So we'll see. And they play on June 8th as well, Haiti and Nicaragua against each other, which would probably decide that group. And then, of course, the Gold Cup starts on the 10th of July. So busy.
And, it is busy. Amazing. Haiti will be tough. If we have to go play there. And then your home game is not a home game. Your home game is Florida. That could be a difficult draw. I mean, I still fancy us right now. Quite honestly, I really like this team. I like the way, obviously, I like the way they're being managed, their organization. There's just so much to like about this group right now.
No, that's a good point. And the Gold Cup group is the Americans, Martinique, and then a qualifying winner. And surprise, surprise, one of the teams in that qualification tournament is Haiti. So, and they would likely be the favorites to get through. So I guess if you're going to create a Gold Cup nightmare group for Canadian supporters in terms of past results at Gold Cups, USA, Martinique, and Haiti will probably be the 3 teams in it, and that's who they got. So that'll be interesting. How do you think John will approach these 2, I guess, sets of matches? Because you've got 4 big games in June, and then at least 3. You would hope that you would probably play 5 or 6 in July. Would you use the same squad for both? Could you use the same squad for both? That's a lot of time for some of these players to be away. Obviously, European players should be off, but you also want them to rest up for the next season. How would you approach that?
Yeah, well, I'd probably approach it with a bit of squad rotation, in these matches for sure. Again, we've got the depth, I feel now, to be able to put out any roster to, certainly to win our first game. Really, I don't think you need your top players to get a result there, who your perceived top players are. So I'd rotate. I think that's keep them fresh. Again, you said there's a lot of football. to be played here. Get everybody playing. The more we get them playing, it's just good for the chemistry of the squad anyhow, because now you're going to have some real great choices in those meaningful matches on who will be the 18 that day. And if you're choosing your 18 from a group of 26, 24 players that have been playing, brilliant.
Yeah. I'm not sure how similar the two squads will look, the one in June and the one in July, because I'm sure managers in Europe probably don't want their, players playing, it'd be 4 plus maybe 6, 10 matches in over the summer, plus a bunch of training sessions when they're supposed to be getting some recovery time. And MLS clubs aren't going to let players go for, both. I'm sure there'll be an international window that would shut down the season a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see who they can get for both, but we'll have to see.
Well, and that's exactly it. It's that shutdown time. But of course, at the end of the day, these internationals are always going to be, the summertime during the European off season. It's just a reality. But yeah, I just think for us, I think as we kind of grow and as we, keep pushing for our World Cup bid or berth, any match where you can start bringing in some other players to have a look at, just to create that kind of same chemistry and the same culture around the group that he's been doing. I think you have to take advantage of it right now instead of just burning up the same 14, 16 players. Can we get a roster of 24 that plays that where some of these kids are getting minutes against an Aruba, as an example, great way to get other players into your system.
Yeah. And then of course the calendar doesn't slow down really either, because September, October, November, more World Cup qualifying. And that's when the Octa would take place, replacing the Hex. So we better be in that. Otherwise, I don't know what to do.
I don't see how we're not going to be.
No, I'm fairly confident we'll be there, but it's always until it's confirmed, you always have a little bit of shred of doubt, especially when it comes to Canada soccer. Why don't we flip a little bit here? Let's talk CanPL. Not a lot of signings, obviously. The ones that are coming out are from Ottawa, and not really surprising because we've seen the roster leak. Chris Manella, who obviously knows Ottawa from playing with the Fury, York 9 as well, and then Dylan Pally, who from FC Edmonton, and Jordan Webb as well. So that's the 3 they've announced. Still waiting on the rest of that list, and I'm sure it'll come out. But Ottawa making some signings. Really, they're kind of the only ones that aren't really close to having a full roster actually announced.
Well, announced, so they do have a roster. We've seen it. The world has seen it, at least the world that pays attention. And I said it when we talked about that league a few episodes ago. I said I like the players they're bringing in. And really, it looks like they've got a lot of players that are scoring where they're at. That's the key. If you look at some of the goal scoring numbers for the last 2 years when these players were able to play in that time frame, there's goals in these players, and in the different places that they've played at. So exciting for them. Their biggest thing was always going to be, they still not replaced Acuna. There's not a player yet, but mind you, there's not a player in the league that's anywhere close to this fella. So I guess I could say it for everybody. But that'll be it. They have a couple roster spots available based on the leaked roster. Of course, we know they need defenders, so that'll be an interesting thing to watch over the next, couple of weeks here. Do they have players in the Atletico system that are already ready to be loaned in to fill those defending spots? I'm probably assuming so. But what a preseason.
Yeah. They're over in Spain right now using Atletico Madrid's facilities. I don't know how long they're planning on being over there, but they've been over there for a little while now. So that's a dream.
Oh, it's a dream. Again, it's, it's such early days in the CPL, and you've got one club that's tied to one of the, top biggest clubs in the planet, who brings you to their facilities for preseason every year. You know what, you're trying to sell your club, to a player, and Ottawa's talking to that player, and it's as a young kind of budding star 21-year-old, you're thinking that going to Spain for 3 weeks this time of year is probably not a bad thing.
It sounds pretty nice, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's some camping trip, but it's decent.
That camping trip, We made up for it though when the league made everybody go to the Dominican for a week, so I guess
That's
it's
right.
okay.
That's right.
Valor, the pipeline between CF Montreal and Valor continues with a couple more players on loan.
Yeah.
Jonathan Sirois, a goalkeeper. Obviously, that worked out
Mhm.
last time with Pantemis. So this time they're going to try another goalkeeper and a forward, Sean Ray, as well, who played for Canada at the U17 World Cup in Brazil in 2019,
Mhm.
2 appearances. So do you like that clubs are kind of establishing links like that, a little pipeline system?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Because really we know the trick for these young players, especially the 18-year-olds and some of the top prospects in the country, 18, 19, 20, they need to play matches. And if they're not going to play that, with the MLS sides, then these loans work out for everybody. They certainly work for the CPL because depending on the loan deal, some of these could be free transfers, free loans, where you're just really covering the accommodations of a young player. And that's really healthy for your salary cap. It creates opportunities to do other things. So I like to move for many reasons, but in particular for the young athlete that now gets to be in a regular training environment, playing meaningful matches at 18. So, I wish them well. They had another kind of big announcement, but I thought we always knew he was coming back with Batiste. And sometimes we talk so much about new players coming into a team. How is this team going to get better? New signing. Shamit Shom coming to Edmonton, for example, new player, great signing. It's going to change the team. But we pay less attention to who gets re-sign. And sometimes it's your re-sign players that are actually going to have the most value and biggest impact in your team. And Valor, again, talking about Baptiste the other day, and being re-signed, that the beast is back. I think someone mentioned on one of their accounts.
Gailey, I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A top defender, and you're getting him back. I mean, it's actually impressive they've held him for a year, because I imagine there would have been a lot of interest in the USL Championship in particular for him. So the fact that Valor kept him, well done to them, and Gailey in particular, for selling a project that these players of that caliber want to be part of.
Yeah, and obviously he's massive for that team on the back line, and maybe some of those loan deals free up a little bit of extra of cash to give him that little bit of incentive to stay here and not go to the States as well. So good on Valor for making that move. So yeah, we talked about Ottawa training in Spain. FC Edmonton is training here, mostly using the Scottish Dome for now before they go outside to Clark. Cavalry just started training this week as well. And Halifax, the Wanderers have been training for, I think, about a week or so as well.
Right.
So half the clubs are training, half the clubs, we don't know whether it's, trying to get the restrictions lifted for them to train or what's going on there. But it's weird to see half the clubs being like, hey, we're back, and half the clubs are kind of in the dark. What do you make of this whole situation? Obviously, it's different from province to province, but I mean, it's a weird look, isn't it?
No, it is a weird look. It would make a lot more sense to everybody. I'm sure the managers in particular, if they actually knew when they were going to be playing. Again, it's one thing to get out early and get your team going, but if you're not going to kick a meaningful ball for 3 months, it can be as detrimental to the psyche of an athlete as well, to kind of do this training, and you're not really training for anything. You can't play games because that's not allowed by COVID restrictions yet in our country, to have contact games against side opposition. So what are you training for? So this will be, the fact that, and also teams need, these players have been off forever. And last year they had 1 month of football. So since November of 2019, these players have had 1 month of football.
Yeah.
They're going to need more than ever a minimum 6-week proper training camp. And I don't mean a staged one like we tried to get ready for PEI, where you could train one player on each quadrant of the field for 2 weeks at a time. That was it. And then you ramp up to 5 players on one half. This has to be full team training with contact, normal football for 6 weeks if these players have a chance of coming in and sustaining a season and maintaining their health. Anything less than that is showing a complete disrespect or lack of concern for athlete health, quite honestly. So knowing that we need that, some teams are coming back now, other teams are not training yet. So you can assume 6 weeks from the point that, when the Ontario team starts to get training, now we can start to guess 6 weeks after that potential start dates. But until they start kicking the ball, don't plan on football for at least 6 weeks from that point. I don't know this for a fact, obviously. I'm speculating, but if they don't give these athletes 6 weeks of proper training, it's not right.
Yeah, so they were initially targeting the Victoria Day long weekend, which is 6 weeks from now. So it seems unlikely. Throw this
Mhm.
out there, over under start date of July 1st, Canada Day for the CPL this year.
Over.
Yeah. I don't see them starting before then either. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see it.
it's tough.
I
I
don't see
know
it.
they're so set on butts and seats too, because obviously that's where the money's going to come from for these clubs. Uh,
Yeah.
you can't bubble again. I don't think it's just not going to work. You've got to have fans in. Everybody's got to play at home. So I don't know. It's tough, and with these variants and COVID and stuff, just rates are skyrocketing again until everybody gets vaccinated. You know, whatever the herd immunity mark, 75, 80%. It's gonna be real tough, I think, to get people in seats. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think of the league? And is it weird that the league hasn't said anything? Like they don't really have a plan. Uh, Radio silence probably is maybe the worst thing right now, isn't it?
Well, I think that yeah, especially when we know that teams are training, and now all the clubs that we support are already, again, if you're not in Ontario, the clubs you support are releasing images of teams in training, of our favorite players, or the graphics that are coming out on social media and Twitter and whatnot. So now we start to believe, and we're starting to get excited, but we don't hear anything. And I think that for everyone that follows the CPL, I think that we almost owe it to all the followers of the league that are going to help build this league and make it sustainable. I think we owe it to those people to actually let them know, kind of at least give them an idea of what the plan is, because it keeps us invested. But the longer
Yes.
we have no idea, we lose our investment in teams and players. So just for that reason.
You got to at least, get a schedule or something out, like some sort of concrete plan. Because as I mentioned, I think it was the last episode we were talking about the Voyageurs Cup. I think the reason Forge hasn't been able to train for the V Cup, or a potential what should have been the final, is because there's no concrete plan. There's no plan for them to have
Right.
matches. So why would the Ontario government say, sure, go ahead and train? Whereas Toronto FC has been like, here's our schedule. We have to play on X, Y, Z date. And the government's like, yeah, sure, you have a plan. Go ahead. The obvious comparison for CPL, I think, is the Canadian Elite Basketball League. It's a league that started up at the same time. It's a similar size. They have eight teams as well. They've had a schedule out for 2 months. Their tip off June 5th, and they're indoors. So what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's the direct comparison. The league that started around the same time, they managed to get in a very successful, and no one talked about that, but they had a very successful bubble
Yes.
experience, and they were the first ones to do it. And yeah, this is, of course, we have a good friend that's in a management position with the Stingers.
Yes. Yeah.
Andre, and delighted for him, by the way. Great guy. And yeah, they've just nailed it, but they've nailed it everything. I mean, their marketing, their promotion and branding. I've been to a game with the Stingers, and I got to sit kind of front row, and I had a great time. The drink prices are reasonable. Yeah, and it's just that the music is playing.
Yeah.
It's just a fun atmosphere. So they're really, yeah, they've got this piece figured out, and they're providing a real entertainment experience. So, but you're right, they're organized. They have dates. They've released schedules. They know when they're going to play. And if they have to make an alteration based on COVID, they'll come right out and do that.
Yeah.
But at least they have something saying, here's the plan right now. And I think we would all buy this in the CPL. I think we would all appreciate that we're still in some unknowns with the variants, but here's what our plan is. We're starting on this date. Here's your schedule. Great. Now there is a plan B. If we can't start that, we'd all hold our hands up. No,
Yeah.
Great. There's a plan B. We get it. Because I won't go to a game right now until I'm vaccinated personally.
Right. And
So, yeah.
well, FC Edmonton just put out the results of their fan survey. It was like, would you attend if you had to be vaccinated? Would you attend if you had to wear a mask, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And obviously, overwhelmingly, the results were, yeah, if all the safety measures are in place, then we'll go for sure. But you're right. I think even if the CPL put out a schedule and said, this is what we want to try, I know they've had meetings and said, listen, this is plan A, this is plan B, this is plan C. They have them probably all mapped out. Why not at least give the fans something to cling on to, something to look forward to, something to get the conversation rolling? Because we talked about in some of these markets, a lot of these teams get kind of pushed aside, especially when you haven't played since, 7 games last year. Like, it's going to be real tough, I think, for some of these clubs to reestablish themselves in their communities.
Well, give us a reason to buy a season ticket.
That too.
Because if I don't know what the schedule is, if I have no idea when the league is going to start, no idea what the plans are, if COVID extends it into, a June starts, I'm not buying a ticket yet at the end of the day. So give us that. Give me a reason to buy a season ticket, and I'll buy one.
Yeah, exactly. It must be a nightmare right now for the ticket folks in every club, trying to sell something that there's no real tangible, thing there.
That's
You're
right.
just selling a dream at the moment, and I mean that can only work for so long.
Yeah, I've tried a few of those, buy a dream on the internet. They never panned out.
Yeah, so hopefully we hear something from the Canadian Premier League soon, because like we mentioned, it's the middle of April. The first season, what was the first weekend? It was the last weekend of April, was it not? And then the rest of the league started off that first weekend in May. So
that's right.
It would be about that time, but I don't know, man. It's tough.
Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, because we want this to work. We need everyone to work. The league. CPL has to work, and we all need to get behind it. Quite honestly. Yeah.
So there you go. I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted to get to this week. Hopefully next time around we have Jeff Salisbury back with us, and Emma's calmed down a little bit. So we did see him briefly beforehand. He popped in and just she was a little bit grumpy today, but it is what it is. So
it can't be easy living with Jeff. Let's be honest.
Oh, I'd be grumpy.
There's a reason why she's grumpy. Yeah.
I was gonna say, he stayed over at my old apartment one time after a V's match. So
right.
I got a pretty good picture of him at about 3 a.m. just mowing down some 7-Eleven. So
there you go. No, I've never eaten anything at 7-Eleven.
What?
I've never eaten. No, man, I can't buy things that
are
sitting in a gas station counter.
I get it, man.
That's sitting in the open and just kind of roasting there. It's not my thing. Yeah, unless they want to sponsor the show, then maybe I'll have a hot dog on there.
Exactly. I have definitely eaten from there, and it's one of those things that you just go, why did I do that? But it is what it is. So anyways, why don't we leave it there for this week? JP, where can we find you online?
Jeff_Paulus, just on Twitter.
There you go. I'm at Greyson Knutson on Twitter. We are at the Cynical Chow 1 on Twitter. Jeff Salisbury is at Jeff D. Salisbury on Twitter, and he's on all the CPL Facebook groups if you want to bug him there too. So follow us on YouTube as well. Just search the Cynical Challenge. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all your favorite catchers. JP, love chatting with you. Hopefully we'll do it again real soon.
As always, great. Next week. Big news next week.
Ooh, big news, a tease.